Good morning, you guys. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to Conversations with Allieetoile. Today is episode 11, which is exciting. We have had so many amazing talks on here so far, and I am very excited to bring you yet another amazing talk today. And our guest is here right now, so I'm going to add him in. All right, just a second. Hi, Sander. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for being part of Conversations with allieetoile. This is so exciting to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, to begin, I want to pass this, metaphorical microphone to you for a little bit. And for those who are joining us, for those who maybe aren't familiar with who you are or who I am, I want to let you have the opportunity to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your career, your background, your experience, and what you're doing now.
Okay. I'll start from the start. I started dancing when I was 4. I went to the Royal Ballet School of Antwerp in Belgium at the age of 10. So that was in a boarding environment. I won a small competition in France where I won a 2-week summer school to do the Royal Ballet School summer school in White Lodge. And at that summer school, I was offered a summer school for the following year, which would be at the upper school. So I came back the next summer, did that summer intensive, and out of that following summer, I got offered a 3-year scholarship to study at the Royal Ballet School. So I did that. So I moved to London when I was 15. From Belgium to London. I did the 3 years of upper school there, and I graduated with a place to join the Royal Ballet Company, who I danced with for just under 7 years, but 7 seasons. And then I decided to retire from dance. I then went into a 2-year teacher training course at the Royal Ballet School, so back to the school, but obviously trying to get my teacher's degree. As well as Trinity Laban. And during that time, I had my own school in London, mainly teaching private lessons to everyone, but also having regular weekly classes for adults, because I thought there was a gap missing in the market for that. And then, funny enough, I was teaching some privates to some students at Elmhurst Ballet School. And how it works at Elmhurst Ballet School is the students have to ask permission to take outside private lessons. So this one day I got a random call from the artistic director of the school, Robert Parker, asking if I want to come and teach at the school. Obviously, I had to do a proper job application and they had to see me teach. But yeah, I've been teaching at Elmhurst Ballet School now since January 2019. So I'm currently an upper school ballet teacher teaching the last 2 years of men at the school there.
That is so wonderful. Wow. I mean, the amount of knowledge and experience that I am so excited to tap into with you is just, I'm beyond excited. It's very special to be able to not only hear from artists who have had a full career from the pre-professional training all the way to on stage and of course dancing with the Royal Ballet. That is a dream that many dancers around the world have, and being able to do that is so wonderful. And then of course Elmhurst, you're my next door neighbor basically in Birmingham.
I
So
know.
it's nice. I mean, it's crazy now. Times have really affected the ballet world in just the most unprecedented way. But, I'm so grateful to be able to see, you were one of the many faces on social media that I see who continues to offer classes and continues to be a face and a role model and a figure of support for so many, your students and so many even further beyond just who's in Birmingham at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's funny, about a week before the UK went into lockdown, I did see a lot of, great things on the news, yoga instructors offering yoga classes in Italy and, all online through Instagram. And I have to agree with you and say that I've been really impressed with the whole dance community kind of coming together. Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
I know that I offer my classes, and that's that's what it is. But you know, I mean, there's loads of principal dancers around the world, kind of offering for the world to see them practicing at home, and there's so many opportunities at the moment for people to learn and to be inspired and you know, admire all these great artists. So I agree. I'm you know, I know I'm one, but I'm one of many who are offering you know, these kind of classes at the moment.
Absolutely no, and I want to take the time also to acknowledge, because someone, I want to start this with the first question. Someone wrote in, how do you know if these online classes are right for you, or how do you know if they're safe? How do you know if the person who is instructing you is knowledgeable and not going to potentially injure you? Because I know there has been an abundance of people wanting to help and wanting to do things, and I wanted to take a time, you know, take this time to acknowledge how wonderful that is and how commendable it is. But also, again, most of us, you know, we're either in our bedrooms, in our kitchens, you know, in very, very, you know, not necessarily ideal conditions to be doing ballet. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to urge and stress to everyone, not only just because people have sent me messages, but what I've been able to see, you know, stay as active as you can. I encourage you guys to do it because it is so important. It's not the same as being in a studio. We all know that, but something is better than nothing. And it's just important to know that if you're working with someone, choose someone who has the right credentials, choose someone who has the knowledge of, you know, of having a career, of being an instructor such as yourself, you know, because we know as much as we want, you know, as much as I want to start doing 32 fouettes, I just cannot do that on a tile floor in my kitchen. I'm going to end up in worse shape than I left.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I have to be careful. I had to ask permission to do this because obviously I'm still fully employed. I'm a product of the organization that I work for.
Sure.
But Elmhurst Ballet School is such a great school, and it's a good organization both for all the kids in their care, but also the staff. Um, they've been very open with me, and they've you know, I want to make sure that I you know, keep those values. So it's tricky, obviously, catering for, you know, everyone can join my class.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not offering anything that's not safe. You know, with kind of the level of the class, that's tricky as well because I'm aware that I've got lots of young students following me. So, you know, I can't start doing a company class because that's not that wouldn't
Yeah.
be safe for everyone. So I've just thought you know, I want to be able to do a mediocre general level that, you know, it's always good to go back to basics for professionals. So if they do want to
Absolutely.
join, they can, but so that it's a class that, you know, everyone can can join into, but also very safe. You know, I actually this morning class, I did my very first preparation for jumps, and I did stress to everyone that I didn't want them to jump high. You know, it's just to get that feeling back in the ankles. Yeah, so every time I do something, I do, you know, I explain everything thoroughly and I make sure that they're doing it safely. And I think going back to your question, yeah, there's as wonderful as it is that so many dancers are kind of opening a window into their
Yes.
life and their practice. Um, I'm glad that I'm also offering classes, knowing that what I'm offering is safe and I'm giving out a lot of information. It's not just follow me and that's it. I'm trying for students to still get valuable information whilst being at home.
Absolutely. No, I think that's so, so wonderful. You know, and it's interesting as well, as you know, being a dancer, being an instructor, the physical nature of what we do, it goes without saying just how difficult that is. And obviously, we are restricted right now, but I want to talk a little bit to you about the mental component because it's very, you know, in a ballet dancer's career, it's more commonplace for us to talk about things like, you know, oh, my knee is really not good today, or I'm having a problem with my foot and I can't jump today, I need to take a break. But why is it so difficult, do you think, for dancers to talk about if we're mentally not doing the greatest? You know, maybe you had a bad day, maybe you had a fight with a family member, or maybe there's something a lot deeper or a lot more sensitive that's underlying, there, that it's not always easy to confront someone and talk to them about it.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, and I have been listening to some of your other conversations that you've had with your other guests,
Oh, thank
um,
you.
and it's been really interesting. Um, I think in the profession, I've got two answers to this. I've got one in the education setting and one in a professional
Sure,
setting. So
sure.
I think in a professional setting, I mean, from my experience, for those 7 years, you're in a constant situation of having to prove yourself.
Sure.
And I think that goes from anyone from joining the company to experienced principal dancers. I think you're always trying to prove that you either deserve to do more or proving that you deserve to be doing what you've been given. Um, and I think that's the reason why a lot of dancers probably feel like they would be seen as weak, actually, if they were to bring up, you know, and open up about how they're feeling
Yeah.
mentally. And I had a short career. I'm There's reasons why I stopped. There's many reasons, but one of the reasons was, also I thought I was undervalued. That's one of the many reasons. There's many other reasons. So towards the end of my career, I wouldn't say that I had the happiest last year in the company. Um, I look back now and I think I'm so blessed to be where I am right now. So I'm glad everything happened. But I agree, it's I think more should be done for dancers to be able to express how they're feeling. So going to my other part of my answer, I think in an educational setting and what I'm seeing, I mean, obviously I see it at Elmhurst
With
Ballet
your
School.
students, yeah.
Um, but what the students have in place these days compared to when I was at the Royal Ballet School 13 years ago now, a lot of improvements have been made, and I'm very pleased to see that. We have sports psychologists, we have non-sports psychologists. The medical facilities that are being offered
Sure.
have greatly improved.
No, I think that's an amazing thing. I think mental well being is just as important as the physical component to what we do because, I mean, it completely affects your performance. I think that it's not just, some people who I've spoken with in the past, and when I was younger, I was always being told, you just got to stay focused, you've got to be disciplined. And because ballet is such a disciplined art form, it's very easy to naturally revert into that mode, putting the blinders on and just diving into the work and forgetting about those other external or internal factors, and I think it's something that should be more normalized because before we're Ali the ballerina, Sander the performing artist, the instructor, we're Ali the person. It comes down to just a human nature type thing, and given the current situation that we're in, we're not able to dance, we're not able to teach to the normal extent of what we do, and there's a lot of questions and a lot of fear about when am I going to get back? When am I going to be able to perform or teach again? And of course, is it going to be the same? And it's very scary because you think about, am I going to be in shape? Am I going to, is this going to negatively affect my career? Because as you've mentioned, aside from whether it was a personal choice or just in general, dance is not the longest career out there by any means. And so there's been a lot of people who have wrote into me, what are your thoughts on the timing of this? Injuries are one thing, personal leave is another thing, but this is something that nobody really asked for. So how would
Yeah.
you, if you were speaking to another professional or a student, what would you advise them for how they should be thinking of this time right now?
Um, well, what people need to understand is that it's not in their control.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the whole globally we're all in the same position, which is actually, I would say, it's a better thing than if it were to be just one country.
Sure.
Um, so I mean, I've heard loads on the radio about football players and when the season will open again. And, you can't just schedule a football match without giving the footballers time to get back in shape. And I think exactly the same will happen in the ballet world. I think, when lockdown finishes, they're not going to schedule a show in week 2 because
Yeah.
that's not possible. So I think companies are going to be very kind of open-minded and understanding that
Yeah.
just like beginning of season after a long period of time off, dancers need time to get back in shape, get back in the groove and of things. So I think people will understand. um I think the difficulty with the whole situation in the ballet world and with ballet companies and um my why I understand that a lot of professionals are scared is because a lot of companies, um, they live off ticket sales.
Yeah.
Um, and luckily, there's some bigger companies who do have private funding and all that stuff. But I think most companies, a big proportion of survival is ticket sales. And I think that's why a lot of dancers are scared and understandably scared. I mean, my students who have job offers, um, are they going to keep those offers or
Sure,
are those
absolutely.
offers going to be taken away? And it's not just for students; it's for professionals as well. So I deeply, feel for everyone who's going through this time. Um, but what I would say is I hope that companies are. I'm sure they will be understanding, but I hope they'll be able to survive and get enough funding um,
Definitely.
to come back to, when we can come back, that we can come back.
No, absolutely. I think that's definitely the right mindset to have. I mean, I completely agree. And even, I mean, Birmingham Royal Ballet hasn't officially announced exactly what we're doing next, but in all of the company meetings that we've been having and the emails we're sending, they're already talking about giving us 6 to 9 weeks extra when we get back to the beginning of the season, just to help
Okay.
people probably, get back into shape and do this healthfully. Because, as you know, like our body is our tool for this art form. And if we come back too soon, if we push too much, it's the same thing if you're coming back from an injury. It could be a lot worse before it gets a lot better. So
Yeah.
I do think that's important. And I do think it's really necessary to stress that. I want to be back. I want to go be with my colleagues and dancing. I mean, we were just doing Swan Lake. I mean, it was crazy because, we're all complaining, oh, my legs hurt. We're on show 42 or whatever. And now I'm
And now
wishing
you
that I
want to
was
get
on,
back.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
wishing I was on show 43. It's a strange feeling. It's a sad feeling too, because we don't know when to expect anything. But I think that mindset that you're offering, that approach to it, is very mindful. And you got to be kind to yourself at this time, because I think this is an opportunity where, of course, we can keep ballet as a priority and we can keep ourselves moving. But I think it's equally an amazing opportunity for you to be able to pursue the other passions or pursuits that you're interested in, because I think that as a dancer, it's the whole circle that matters. It's not just what you do in the studio, it's what happens in your life. It's all these life experiences that you can culminate together and have that look and, turn into something wonderful on stage or in the studio with whatever you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, Um, I've been lucky. I'm not good with time off either. I like being busy, and hence why I'm trying to get some sort of daily structure
Sure.
together. Um, I'm, I've been lucky. I've just purchased a house here in Birmingham, and it needs a complete renovation. So I never thought that I would be, in the new house every afternoon, completely
Yeah.
full of dirt and working on a house renovation. But actually, I'm really really enjoying it, and I it's exactly what you're saying, and I hope people take this time as an opportunity to explore
Yeah.
different things that they can enjoy. I think as dancers as well, as you said, a dancing career is short. So it's a good time for people to, think about, well, not for now, but in 10, 15 years, what are the other things that would interest me? So I hope people take that opportunity because I know very well when I retired, my career, everything goes so quickly that you know, the day I retired, I really didn't have anything to go to. I mean, I'm the kind of person who I will, get something together no matter what. I've got that personality. So
Sure.
4 weeks after I left, I opened my own school, and so. But yeah, I hope people take the opportunity to, to keep busy and think about their other interests, and yeah.
Of course, of course. So I have my computer here with me, and so I have got people just writing in so many things, and I wanted to address a few more topics that were they're very delicate conversation topics, but I think that you would have a really amazing insight to this, and I definitely want to tap into your knowledge because I know that this is something that as a young dancer I needed to hear this, and I didn't necessarily hear it enough. And
Okay.
so some of these topics are being, obviously ballet is very competitive. We know this. Not necessarily competitive just in the fact that there's competitions, but competitive in the fact that there's very few jobs to be had, and typically the only time companies are hiring is, again, if it's a bigger company, they usually have the capacity for it, but the bigger the company, the more difficult it is. And then other companies, maybe if they're a little bit smaller, the real openings only come if maybe someone is retired or on a maternity leave, things like this. And so someone is asking, in a career field that is so competitive, how do you know if you should even bother doing this, if this is something that you should pursue? That they want, I think from reading this, I want to be a professional dancer, but I don't know if I'll make it. What advice would you give to your students or to other dancers who maybe have these trepidations or maybe are unsure of what the reality could be for them, given the times now and then just given the nature of a ballet career?
Um, I mean, my motto and what I say to everyone is don't um, don't dance to be the best. Dance to be your own best.
Sure,
Um,
that's wonderful.
and I mean, I teach the graduate students at the school, so I help them a lot with their audition process and where to apply for. And of course, again, what I say is, if you can financially try and audition everywhere. I think what people need to understand is companies aren't just looking for the most talented dancer out there. Um, I mean, just to put it in context, if you're working in an ice cream shop and you're out of strawberry flavor, that's that flavor that you want to get back in so that you can keep selling things. So, if you have someone retiring from BRB, for example, who was a petite female dancer who did all the roles for a small female dancer. And if that opening came up, then that's the kind of person they would be looking for, even though there might be someone who's 5'11", 10 times better. But if they don't have an opening for that sort of dancer,
Sure.
um, and so that's why for people auditioning, don't, if you can, try and audition everywhere because you never know what they're looking for. um, and if you feel like you're not the strongest in an audition, don't let that affect you because you have no idea what they're looking for.
Absolutely. No, I think it's important to recognize as well what maybe you think is a weakness or something that isn't necessarily your best feature. The person next to you is going to be completely different. Whether it's just the shape of your body, the way that you're moving, or just, sometimes it comes down to, hair color, eye color, what they're looking for. You are your greatest asset because no one else is like you. And chances are there's going to be, a director of a school or a company or wherever you're at in your pursuits of this career, there's going to be a right fit for you. And I think one of the smartest things you can do moving forward from that place is just doing your research, doing your homework, looking at what rep different companies do, you know, see
Yeah.
if it's something that you would be interested in doing, or look at maybe the choreographers who really, you know, work heavily or are heavily involved within those schools and companies. I think it's important for you to kind of see, or at least, you know, when I was a student, I was blessed to have a trainer who was telling me these things. You know, it's not just I want to dance for the Royal Ballet because it's the Royal Ballet. It's, you know, of course, you know, you think about, do I like the rep? Do I like the, you know, the choreographers who was working there? And as I'm getting older and, you know, getting to a place in my life where I'm wanting to put down some roots and do something serious, you know, I start to think about, do I like the lifestyle there? Is, you know, that was a big thing for me, is, you know, moving to England. I knew that was, I know I'd been to London, I've been to Birmingham several times, but it was a big thing for me to think about, is this somewhere that I could see myself for the foreseeable future and having a life
Yeah.
and having meaningful relationships with people? So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind. And I'm sure in your career and in your life, you know, going through school, I mean, you've had a wonderful natural progression through the Royal Ballet School system, which I think is absolutely terrific. But definitely, I mean, how would you advise, again, students or other professionals out there who are wanting to find kind of that track? You know, what do you look for? Or how do you identify what's right for you? And personally, your own experience, how did you know it was the right fit?
So that's a difficult question for me to answer personally as a student, because to be honest, I from the age of 10 to kind of 15,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really exposed, or I wasn't in reflection, I didn't look outside of Belgium that much. So during those 5 years between the age of 10 and 15, all I wanted and all I was working for was to join the Royal Ballet of Flanders, which is the company in Antwerp, in
Yeah,
Belgium. So when I then did the summer school in London, and I got exposed to the Royal Ballet, and especially the second year round,
sure.
and I learned more about the history of the company and how prestigious the company is. Kind of from day one of me joining the upper school, I said to myself, well, that's my new goal. If that's one of the best companies, then that's where I want to go. Um, but I have to be honest and say I wasn't exposed to, or I didn't know about the Royal Ballet before age 15.
Sure.
Um, I think when it comes to looking for the right school and the right company, I think it's exactly right what you're saying. And um, I know that I'm still in the ballet world, but I'm not in a ballet company. I'm more, I'm a ballet teacher, and I really would call myself a teacher. If people ask me what's your profession, I say I'm a teacher. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a ballet teacher. Um, but when I applied for this job that I'm doing now, again, I had to make a list of all the pros and all the cons. You know, because I lived in London at the time. My husband um, lived in London. You know, we would have to sacrifice quite a lot for me to take on this job.
Sure.
And again, we had to go through the pros and the cons. Again, would I fit in well with this organization? Would there be room for me to grow? And it's the same for a ballet school. You know, you need to look at who's teaching there, who's managing the school,
For
what are
sure.
the opportunities that are being given at the school, and how would I benefit from those opportunities. Um, Same in a company. You know, it, people might get in the Royal Ballet, but they might know deep down that they would never make it to dance roles that they would love to dance. So they would therefore choose to go to perhaps a smaller company and do get to the top. So, you know, it's even with things like getting a job with the Royal Ballet, because I had three job offers, that was one of them. I didn't just get the job and take it. I had to again think about the pros and cons.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I think what you're saying is right. Do the research. Um, Again, I'm talking about a list. I'm someone that I like to write things down and see it clearly in front of me.
I'm very the
And
same way, yeah.
yeah, if there's more pros than cons, then it wins. And if it doesn't, if there's more cons, then that's my answer as well. So I think, yeah, do your research, see where you could get most benefits from, even if whether it's a school or a company.
Definitely. I think that, I mean, again, I love your perspective on this because I think it's such an incredible thing to be able to, you've gone through this process, so everything that you're able to speak about, somebody in the world, many people in the world are going through that right now. And it's a very challenging time to be going through it nonetheless. So
Yeah.
I love that point of view. Now, I want to quickly touch on another topic that I think is something, again, rather delicate, but very, very important. There's a lot of stigmas, there's a lot of stereotypes within the ballet world, and I want to associate that again to the competitiveness and how there's a lot of expectations for what a male and a female ballet dancer should look like, what we should be doing. 2020, people should have solid, clean 2-3 pirouettes, and now it's the level is getting higher and higher and higher. But the other thing that, again, with the technical side of things that is being elevated and more critically analyzed, I'd say, is our bodies. And you definitely are someone who have lived through this. I've lived through this, and I'm sure that you see your students going through this as well. There is this thing called puberty, and unfortunately, it's not always that fun, but it plays a major role into our dancing and our development as young adults. And I think it's important to address the fact that it can really make ballet difficult. When guys, especially, you're growing, you're getting taller, you're getting more muscles. And I know personally for me, there would be days where I would go into the studio and I was growing, and one day I'd be able to balance perfectly for, solid couples, few 8 counts, and then the next day I'd get in there and I couldn't let go of the bar. Some things just worked, some things just didn't. And if definitely, you look in the mirror, you see things changing and you feel different. And that can really have a big effect on your mental outlook of how you are as a person and how you're dancing. And so what is your personal experience with going through that time in your adolescence and your development? And how did that affect you, if it did at all, mentally?
So I'm going to be very open about this. When I first joined the Royal Ballet School, I had an accident. I had a bad landing from a jump, and I actually fractured my back in 2 places, my lower back. So I ended up being in a massive brace for 6 months because I wasn't able to move. And during that period of time, I also started to think, well, I can't dance. I'm in a brace. I'm competing with all these classmates to get that job. How can I keep improving? And I started to reduce my food intake, thinking, well, I'm not. I wasn't thinking about losing weight. I was more thinking I'm not being active. Therefore, if I want to stay in shape, I should reduce my food intake a little bit. Mm-hmm. And to keep a long story short, it kind of escalated a bit to the point where, my parents were going to take me home unless I got better. So I didn't get to the point of getting really bad, but I did go through a struggle during that time at school. I think what people have to, in terms of puberty, how I see it now is it's very, very simple. And I try and explain this to the students, but more so to the parents, because I think a lot of students are getting a lot of pressure from parents when parents see their children developing. Mm-hmm. And it's very simple. Puberty is a phase we all have to go through, and especially for those ladies out there, what you need to understand is that your hips or body goes wider because it's maturing. And when you go through that stage and it's all developed, it goes back. Or, you grow up. You don't keep growing sideways. You grow sideways and then you grow taller. And I think that's something that people get so focused on, the getting wider, getting the hips, getting breasts, when it's a completely normal phase that dancers have to go through, that young adolescents have to go through. And I think by trying to stop that process, you're only making, you're messing up your metabolism. It can have long-term effects on people's health.
For sure.
So it's, I think I can put it very simply to parents or to students, however, how how they take that information or how they deal with that process is very individual. My journey had nothing to do with puberty. I mean, I'm 28 now, and I think I'm just lucky. I've never, you know, I've never been big as such. I'm muscly because as male dancers we have to be muscly. But I wouldn't say I've ever been big, and I think I'm lucky with that. So I've never thought, oh, I have to be skinnier in a sense. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I think it's a conversation that needs to be more normalized. I think it's a topic that needs to be, approached with care and sensitivity because it affects everyone differently. Some people it's not as drastic as it is for others, but it's definitely something that's just, it's a part of life, and it is the way I look at it. And when people have asked me, this is growing, this is changing, this is happening, and it looks bad, it feels bad. The best piece of advice that I was ever given was that you are blooming. You are in the process of becoming. And that has been by far one of the most powerful messages I've ever received. And I look at it and I translate it to, I am blooming into the person that I'm going to becoming. I'm blooming into the artist and the dancer that I'm going to becoming. And this is a journey, and especially one in a career field that is so physically demanding as ours. You have to keep in mind, once you become a professional dancer, the hard work doesn't stop. You don't keep you don't stop working on your body or this or that. It constantly continues. And I think for me, even when I joined a company for the first time, I was 17 when I joined Houston Ballet, that was the big thing for me, where I was like, wow, I'm here now, and this is like the moment I've been working for my entire life. This is incredible, amazing, but I'm basically starting all over again, because not only do I have to relearn what it means to work in a professional environment, I am now 17 working amongst people who are, even 10 years my senior, who have their lives all together and families and houses, and just they're in a different stage in their lives. So it was a physical change of being able to take care of myself, living on my own, maintaining a condition that is appropriate for the means of work, and then of course being socially involved in different ways. When you're in a classroom environment, I think we tend to get a bit of a comfort, a security blanket, because we're around our friends, we're around our peers, we're in the same age group, and we're going through this together. And unfortunately, we're not all able to stay together for the duration of our careers, So it's very important. I love everything you had said. There's a very mindful way, a very tactful way to approach image. And someone just sent in, which I think is also very similar to this as well, obviously, again, we've touched on ballet is competitive. We've touched on how there's a lot of stereotypes and stigmas within this industry. Someone wants to know, have you personally ever dealt with conflict within the company, within school, whatever it may be? Have you dealt with conflict where it made you feel insecure? And is it okay to have insecurities about yourself and about your performances as a professional?
I wouldn't say I've had personal conflict from other dancers. I think what can make you feel insecure in a professional company is perhaps days when casting comes out, where you think, oh, well, I've been here 3 or 4 years now. The company knows me. The company knows my strengths and my weaknesses. Why am I not being given this opportunity? Those moments, and yes, on several occasions, that knocked my confidence. Again, I'm the type of person who kind of would create even more conflict by going to my director and saying, look, I'm not here to wait around. I want to be giving these opportunities. Mm-hmm. But yes, it is difficult, and not by other dancers. I think all my colleagues during my 7 years with the Royal Ballet were so nice. I think I was competing with myself more than with other dancers, if that makes sense. I never thought, oh, he's better, therefore I must get better than him. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I saw the beauty in learning from people that were better than me. Um, I was really in competition with myself because I wanted to get that good, not because I felt like other people were better than me. Um, but yeah, days when castings come out can be a difficult day, um, or a glorious day. You know, it's tricky. And going back to kind of the conversation of body image, you know, my strong point was my partnering skills. So I everyone in the company knew that I was very strong, but I didn't look strong. I'm I was just under 6 foot. I think most people that have a strong career through partnering are above 6 feet. They look very manly, they look very muscly, whereas I was just a bit smaller. I've always been slender, as I said. So even though I was capable of doing those roles, I didn't have the look for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was my frustration. I was kind of a all-round dancer. I you know, I was put in the small roles, but also the tall roles because I was that perfect medium height. Um, but I never really got to do what I was really good at, and until 6 months before I left, I did Paris in Romeo and Juliet alongside Francesca Hayward for her debut, and that was the kind of role that I would hope to do a lot sooner in my career. Um, so yes, I mean those casting days can be difficult, um, but yeah, no, I didn't have conflict from other dancers. Definitely not.
That's good. No, no. I mean, I think that I love what you said. How there's going to be moments that feel like unbelievable days of the high feeling, the wonderful feeling of just this is great. I'm loving my career. I'm loving every second. But it's also important to identify, that like in life, it's a roller coaster. We have the ups, we have the downs, we have the moments that we want to relive forever, and then others that we wish we never lived in the first place. But I think it's important to keep those thoughts, keep those experiences with us, because as you move forward and progress in your career, in your studies, in your training, it's only going to benefit you when you have the next opportunity or when you have the next performance. This is something that I love to, whenever people talk to me or ask me questions, you know, what if that pirouette didn't go well? What if this didn't happen? I'm like, well, then I have next time.
And
You
also,
know,
I have some. I Looking back now, if I were to give any advice to professional dancers now, whether they're older than me or younger than me, when I decided to leave the Royal Ballet, I still had 6 months left that I wanted and had to complete. And those 6 months were, when I did Paris, but what I'm trying to say is those 6 months were the best 6 months of my life because I took the pressure off myself. I didn't have to prove myself anymore because I had made up my mind. Um, I had nothing to prove. The only thing I had to do was enjoy being on stage, enjoy being surrounded by all these amazing dancers,
for sure.
enjoy performing in such a beautiful theatre. And those performances, actually, I was able to perform better because I was more relaxed. So I would, if people feel like, and the nature of our job is to constantly prove yourself, but I would say, don't forget to reflect on what you have achieved so far, whether you're in your second year in a company or in your 15th year in a company, and just enjoy it as well. Because, I mean, I was ready to give up performing. When people ask me, do you miss it? My answer is a no, I don't miss it. I'm happy with my decision. But I look back and I think, wow, I almost wish that I enjoyed it a bit more, um, rather than just that last 6 months.
Sure. No, I mean, that's an amazing perspective. I'm not at that place in my career yet where I'm thinking about stopping, but it gives me something to think of. I think that the mindset, it's not an easy decision. Um, My guest who I had on here just yesterday, I was speaking about, she's no longer dancing. She was actually with Birmingham Royal Ballet as well. And, it's very interesting because everyone kind of comes to a point where sometimes we need a break, or sometimes we need to make that decision that I've had enough. And, I want to tie this into another question, because someone wrote in and saying, I'm at a place where I don't feel inspired. I don't feel motivated to do anything. And it's not just situationally with the coronavirus. They're saying it's been for a while now. They love ballet, and when they're on stage, they never want to get off. But the whole process, the training aspect, the lifestyle that it means to be, to sustain this kind of career, it's a lot. And I can understand at a young, tender age that it's hard, because there's sacrifices that you have to make. And, what advice could you give to someone who's maybe in a place where they're unsure if they just need to take some time off for themselves and regather gather their intentions to figure out what they want to do in this career? Or what advice could you give to someone who's maybe ready to make that career transition like you did?
I think, okay, this is going to be a long answer, because again, I've got different views on this answer. I think
Sure.
a lot of dancers are scared for change, and I completely get it. And I went through the same thing. For the first 25 years of my life, I was Sander the dancer, and that was my identity. Everyone who knew me knew, rather than knowing my last name, they knew that I was a dancer. So that was my identity. So when I suddenly became Sander the teacher, that was very difficult for me. It was difficult everywhere. My whole identity on my social media, everything was about ballet, and suddenly I had to start saying that I was a teacher. So, and whether I had gone into ballet teaching or whether I would go into a different profession, people will go through a lot of change. And I would say, don't be scared of change. There's the ballet world is, even though it's a big world, it's a very small bubble in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So there's lots of opportunities and other things that you might or will enjoy as much as you enjoy your dancing. I think taking time off is never a bad idea. Going back to the reason why I stopped dancing, I was very, very focused, and I have always been very focused, almost too focused. The year before my last year in the company, I broke my little toe, a minor injury, but it did stop me off dance for 6 months, because you can't dance on a broken toe. And in those 6 months, make me realize that this is not the life that I want to lead anymore. Had I not had those 6 months off due to injury, I might have still been dancing now.
That's very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I had time off. I had evenings off, which was non-existent for me at the time. I was able to see friends, which, I would see friends, but not to the scale that I see my friends now. I had more time with my now husband, and we got a dog during that time. And, I felt like life had more to offer than spending 12 hours in a theatre.
Sure.
Doing 6 shows a week. So I think time off is always, if you're in a position where you can, or where you need some time off, then I would say time off might be helpful. My last answer to this question is, I think don't forget why you're doing what you're doing. I'm sure as well, when the curtain closes and you've done a good show, you've made people's evening, you hear the applause. The weeks and weeks you've been rehearsing for the opening night, that's the moment that you're working for. Sure. And it's such a incredible and exceptional feeling that only so few get to experience, that you almost have to say to yourself, come on, we need to get through the daily struggles, because we want to experience that moment of, feeling like you've succeeded, and that very, again, special moment that not many people get to experience.
Definitely, definitely. I think that's an amazing outlook to have on it. And it's very, it's hearing it from you. I don't want to say, oh, it's so relatable, but for someone out there and for those who are going through that stage of reevaluation, it's important to know that you're not the only person who's lived through this. I think I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that at some point in a dancer's career, maybe even more than once, we all go through a time where we're like, are we going to stop? I personally lived through that. Before I joined Birmingham Royal Ballet, I was not dancing for an entire season. I quit. I thought that I was done. I thought that after leaving Houston Ballet, I unfortunately didn't have a very good experience as a person over there. I loved the dancing, I loved the company, but I was struggling as a person, and that was something that I needed to address, because Allie the person comes first before Allie the ballerina always. And taking some time off, my mind at that point was, I'm done with ballet. This is it. I'm, had a good run, and now I'm going to go to medical school because that's my dream later down the line. But, being able to have a little bit of time made me realize, okay, I'm actually not done. I needed to fix some things first. I needed to
Yeah.
sort out some things, and I needed to decide, what is it that I want out of my career? What is it that I want from my life, for myself? So having, again, if you have time or if you have the ability to take time, which thankfully I wish it was for different circumstances, but we do right now. And I urge you all to reflect and grow and process and treat this time as, this is an opportunity where we can continue to grow as artists, even though we don't have a stage below our feet. So I think it's a wonderful, I so love everything you're saying. I wish, more people need to be hearing stuff like that because it is so relevant. And I want to tie this into the next question. This is something that I've been asking every single guest that I've been having on here
Okay.
so far. And it's been so interesting because I've gotten so many unique different answers. And basically what that is, obviously, again, we touched slightly on stigmas, stereotypes, expectations within the ballet world. What is something or one thing or a couple things, when we all come out of this unfortunate situation in the world, and when we're back into our normal ballet lives, what is one thing that you would love to see change within the ballet world? Whether it's stigma, stereotype, mindsets, different things that, because there's a lot of beautiful things at the ballet, and there's a lot of things that I think need more attention to make better. What is something for you that you think you'd love to see change and love to see addressed?
I think if I think about what I would want dancers to experience and be mindful of is how quickly things can change. And I think one of the hardest things that a dancer. Oh, hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, sorry, you froze for a bit.
Oh, did I?
I think one
okay.
of the most frightening things for a dancer, I think, is to get injured. And if so, if it's a major injury, that's something people are very afraid of. So I hope for dancers when they come back that they can think, we've just had a long time off. We've survived it. I hope they can take that on board in long term. If they do get injured, they might say, well, let's think back to that time of difficulty that we're in now and think, oh, we've gone through that and I got back on my feet. And so that's what I wish for dancers. I think when it comes to, stigmas and changes that I want to see, I think generally, not only in the ballet world, I think people are going to start appreciating their relationships more. I think people always say you don't know what you're missing until you're missing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very valid here. Same for you. It's nice. You've had a year out of ballet. I presume you're back in love with it, and hearing that you want to get back on stage, like, what a great thing for you to be able to say after thinking that you were done with ballet. Um, so again, this is the second time now for you that you've been almost taking a step back, not by choice this time,
Yeah,
but knowing that you want to get back and how much you're missing it. And, it will only make you appreciate what you're doing more and hopefully fall in
absolutely.
love with it more and enjoy it more.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it is, you've said it perfectly. We're all living through this and it affects us all in various ways. But at the end of the day, the start date is going to be the same for everybody.
Yeah.
This is going to be something that collectively the world will be doing together, whether it's things as simple as we're going to be able to start going out in public without a mask on. That's going to happen for all of us. Whether
Yeah.
it's, we can go to the grocery store and, not have to do the social distancing stuff. That's going to happen for all of us. And even we're all going to get back to the studio. It is going to happen. It just is going to take some time, and it's being mindful of that time and knowing that
Yeah.
you will survive, we will make it out of here, and it will be beautiful and joyous and hopefully a very exciting time when we're all able to get back to that. I'm excited to get back to Birmingham, and hopefully, I would love to be able to see you and come visit Elmhurst when it's safe and
I
opportune to
know that would
do
be nice.
so. Absolutely. Well, Sander, I don't want us to run out of time, but I want to thank you so, so much for being part of this conversation today. I personally have learned so much from talking to you, as I hope our viewers have today. And for those who are watching, if you joined slightly later or if you weren't able to see the whole thing, I am going to be having the entire of today's conversation available on my YouTube channel very, very soon. So you guys will be able to share Sander's words all over the world to as many people as you'd like. And again, Sander, your point of view has just been an absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you. And, I have absolutely just loved having you on here.
Oh, thanks very much, and thanks for having me. And it's been a really interesting conversation. So yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely, no, likewise, likewise. Again, for everyone watching this, again, as well to you, Sander, I hope that everyone continues to stay healthy at this time. And, thank you guys for being part of this, and we will persevere. And there is so many more things good coming right around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you guys. See you next time and have an amazing rest of
Bye.
your day. Bye.